Hi everyone, this is Jack R, and I have a vlog today for you. It has to do with our 1958 Rambler cross-country station wagon. To put in perspective, this is a family car, and it was bought to replace a 1954 Studebaker that was bought used by my family, and the 58 Rambler was also used. The timing of this was about 1960, I would say, and my dad was dealing with a Rambler dealer who was a friend, and but not a close friend, one of those acquaintances. And typical of Rambler dealers, I think at the time, it was not among the top of the line car dealerships. It was some miles up the road from them, and the dealership was kind of small. And I didn't realize it at the time, but was rather limited in terms of what they had to offer. First of all, looking back, we were looking at some new cars. My dad really didn't have much interest in cars, and knew very little about cars, really. And so at first he was looking at a brand new Rambler American 1961, I would say. But he was very cost conscious, and a new car really was a bit much for him. So he decided against that, and looking around in the lot, and there was this 58 Rambler cross country with air conditioning of all things, and push button automatic transmission. Now my father would not have opted for either one of them on a brand new car, but this one had about 30,000 miles as I remember, and seemed to be in pretty good shape. However, I was a teenager and didn't know much about cars, so I didn't really know what kind of questions to ask. And so this was our family car for a while. It served as a transportation vehicle between my hometown and college, which was in Philadelphia. And my parents would take a visit down there every once in a while. I lived in the dorm, and it seemed to be okay, but it started to notice oil consumption was pretty high. Maybe a quart every 300 miles, and it was obviously smoking. And one time, on one of these trips back and forth, stopped at a garage, and one of the young guys at the garage said, you've got some noise in that engine, and I think you ought to have it looked at. And it was still very close to the time we bought it, so took it back to the dealer, and I must say they did look at it, and they said, well, the engine needs to be rebuilt. So I don't know, probably was bearings, my guess, but who knows. I didn't know enough about cars to be able to even recognize the engine noise, more than even to diagnose it. So at any rate, they rebuilt the engine. But upon receiving it, and by the way, it was a overhead valve straight six, and when we got the car back, it didn't change the oil consumption problem. Still had that problem. So my guess is that it probably needed valve stem seals. That I think was where the oil was going right past those seals and into the combustion chamber. But it was all right. We just kept extra oil on hand, and transmission was fine. 3-speed automatic, no problems with that. They had changed from Hydromatic the preceding year, 4-speed that they bought from General Motors, to this 3-speed automatic, and that was okay. And the air conditioning was okay. There was no problem with that. On one of the trips back and forth to college, uh, my dad was driving, and when he got to the college, we find out that we're going to go out for coffee or something. So I drove the car, and I noticed this tremendous vibration in the steering wheel, steering column, and I said, "Boy, you better get this thing looked at." Well, my dad wasn't too inclined to do stuff like that, so that didn't happen. And so eventually, they came down again, maybe 3 or 4 weeks later, to visit, and sure enough, on the way down, they didn't make it. About halfway, it was about an hour trip, so about halfway from the house, the car finally vibrated to death, and the universal joint parted company, and the drive shaft was in the road. So they got the tow company and towed it all the way back home. I don't know if they had AAA or not, I don't remember, but I doubt that they paid for that length of trip. So at any rate, back to the dealer, and I found out at this point, my sneaking suspicion that the parts department wasn't very big, nor adequate really, was the fact that they had to order a universal joint, and it would have to arrive via the owner, who would drive down to outside of Philadelphia to pick up an order at the parts depot. So rather than send it by UPS or what have you, everything waited till the 1 week anniversary, and they would go down and pick up said parts at the depot. Well, needless to say, that was a drawback, and found out, the universal joint isn't that exotic, I mean, you should. And when you don't have that many cars and that much variation in the cars, you would think that they would have these things ready. But anyhow, so now in retrospect, that new 1961 or 60 Rambler American looks a lot more attractive and would have been a lot better bet, but we're into this Rambler cross country now, so that was fixed. And so, however, it was unsettling. So they started looking around eventually, finally wound up at the Ford dealer with the 61 Falcon, which was new. So I'll save that for another vlog. But I do think this shows you that despite the fact that Rambler had a good reputation, when you buy a used car and you don't have adequate inspection, you don't know what you're getting. And so we didn't, and so we suffered for it. But we, I guess, theoretically learned our lesson, so we wound up with a new car. But that wasn't all roses either, so I'll save that for the next vlog. So take care, hope you're all well, and I'll see you later.